Watch this.
What you're proposing here is a wish list. It is not what Congress would agree upon.
The last time we had a constitutional convention, we were creating a country. Not that there haven't been tries for a redo since then, but once again, Idaho is one of several states calling for another one. You know, there were 2 future presidents at that first convention. One of them is why most of you have today off from work. But how many other presidents actually impacted Idaho?
We got our rings, guys. Give them some speed.
Idaho's Wood River Valley is well known for its Nordic sports, but how many of you knew this was one of them? We're skipping over to Haley for some Skijoring, so hold on. Well, no rest for the, is it weary or is it wicked? Which one are we going with? Either way, we're not the only ones clocking in on this holiday. So did the Idaho lawmakers. The 68th legislative session marches on and likely well into March. On this 43rd day, committees tackled a, well, who's with whom, politicizing the State Board of Education, and what if we wanted to change the U.S. Constitution, also known as a constitutional convention? Joe Paris kind of listened into what was happening at the State House today, so you have the roundup for us, Joe.
Yeah, for a holiday, they got a lot done, Brian, and we'll start with this. Last fall, we wrapped up a major election cycle, and we heard from Idahoans about the constant advertisements, and lawmakers want to make sure that moving forward, the candidates clearly identify what political party they're affiliated with, and that law would apply to mailers, websites, commercials, buttons, bumper stickers. Any and all campaign materials is the subject of a new bill. But one question came from a committee member, very specifically brought up a practical problem in Idaho. What if it becomes the party versus the candidate?
I had a specific situation with my central committee that thought that I was not Republican enough for them. And so they were giving me, they were actually told me I was not allowed to put the R or the Republican logo on any of my stuff. So although it was on my signs that had been printed from a previous election, how do we address that? Because the party is a private party is what I've been told. So
the answer to that question for the bill sponsor is if you're a Republican, you say you're a Republican, but we'll see if that would really stand up. Legislation was printed by committee. Public hearing comes next. Another idea printed and moving forward today, a call to essentially make the State Board of Education an elected position. As it stands right now, 7 of the 8 voting members are appointed by the governor for terms of 5 years. The 8th member is the state superintendent of public instruction. The bill sponsor argues that the current format is unfair to the people of Idaho based on representation.
5 of the 7 members of the State Board of Education elected by district. We would divide the state into 5 districts, and people would run for those positions. 3 of the current members are from the Boise area, and there's 1 member from North Idaho. So we're looking to, across the state, have representation from each of the districts.
Counter-argument being that there is a more population centered in the Boise area. But finally, an annual tradition of sorts at the State House actually wrapped up a short time ago, about 3 hours of public testimony and debate on calling a convention of states under Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution, a way to open up the Constitution to make some edits. Article 5 of the United States Constitution, it allows states to call for a constitutional convention if 2/3 of state legislatures, 34 states, apply for one. 19 states are actively signed on through state legislative action going back to 2014 when Georgia re-kicked off the current effort. Idaho wants to join for 3 specific reasons to addressing the Constitution. They want to have a balanced budget amendment, have term limits for federal and member of Congress, and supporters say it's time to get budget and power reform done. Critics worry about the so-called runaway convention that would just rip up the Constitution for mass alterations. Others worry the process won't go as proponents hope it will.
At what point does this country go bankrupt? Is it 38? Is it 40 trillion? The federal spending is out of control, and we the people need to impose fiscal restraints to get back to living within a budget just like we all do. We're not going to solve this problem at the ballot box. We need a convention of states to bring the states together to discuss these issues without any interference with the federal government.
This is nothing more than a fantasy wish list of what Idaho hopes that a convention, how it would be run. One state, one vote is not noted anywhere in the Constitution or anywhere else. It's a wish list. And this is what's sold to the smaller states for the smaller states to feel that they will have the same power as the larger states will have.
After several rounds of technicalities and motions and votes, the final word is that by 8-7, the committee passed the idea with the do-pass recommendation to the full House. Brian, it was interesting following this toward the end of it, where there was a lot of different ideas about how to advance it forward. This is something that has advanced in the State House previously out of committee, but has not cleared a full body.
Yeah, I mean, it is a representative government, not the one person, one state, one vote kind of thing. And so that kind of flies in the face of that. There has never been a constitutional convention other than that original one. So we'll see how far this one goes. I have a question for you. The school choice tax credit bill was supposed to go this week, right? Or today, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, there was some murmur late last week that Monday would be the big decision. Of course, over the weekend, President Donald Trump even tweeting about Governor Little and Idaho's effort on the topic. We understand that because of the memorial services today at the State House, they will try to do it on Wednesday.
Gotcha. All right, we'll hold still until then. We'll see what happens with that. Thanks, Joe. Speaking of the holiday, one-day protest over presidential policies has now expanded to 2. And those policies, the reducing of the federal government, has sparked formal reaction from Forest Service workers who are now out of a job. And it's not only President's Day, it's also a day to do random nice stuff for strangers, or even those you know. Here's Abby Davis to explain in the 411.
Protesters gathered at the State House today for another round of demonstrations called 50-51. That's 50 protests, 50 states, one day over President Trump's policies.
I think that this movement is meant to be unifying and to bring people together. After the past couple of years of just so much division and hatred in this country, I think people are looking for a reason to just stop fighting with their neighbor.
Okay. This is just one of a handful of protests taking place around the country today on President's Day. Also today, people in McCall protested after Forest Service workers were laid off. A federal workers union has filed a lawsuit against President Trump. At least 1,000 full-time National Park Service employees and 5,000 seasonal positions are expected to be terminated by the Department of Interior today. That's according to the National Parks Conservation Association. It says the cuts will leave parks understaffed and could have serious public safety and health consequences. Arguments are underway for an Idaho Supreme Court case, which could have major implications on ski resorts across the Gem State. Attorneys for both Sun Valley Company and on behalf of the Milas family, who lost their loved one Stuart while he was skiing, reconvened Friday.
There is no evidence in this record that this snow gun was anything other than plainly visible.
It's there in the middle of the run. It's the only thing in the middle of the run. How is it not plainly visible?
I consider myself a fairly expert skier. What is plainly visible to me is not necessarily plainly visible to Mr. Milas.
No decisions were made, but if the court rules in favor of Milas, ski resorts across Idaho might have to increase liability and insurance costs. Some resorts worry that could put them out of business entirely. The Sawtooth Avalanche Center is reporting considerable and moderate avalanche danger for mountains in the area. The center says the constant snowfall is keeping up the possibility of triggering deeper slides. There is moderate danger for Banner Summit, the Soldier, and Wood River Valley Mountains, and considerable danger for the Sawtooths and Western Smoky Mountains and Galena Summit in the Eastern Mountains. The 36th annual Boise Pride Festival is making some big changes. This year, they are moving to Ann Morrison Park and moving it to a 2-day format. Boise Pride says the event continues to grow, and so does the need for space. By moving to Ann Morrison, they'll be able to double the space and create a more, quote, visible, accessible, and impactful festival. That's happening September 6th and 7th.
We go and we have the kids decorate little coffee collars for us. They look like this. And the kids decorate them. We have them put little messages of affirmation or whatever. I basically told them whatever makes you feel happy that you think would make somebody else happy.
A local coffee shop is warming hearts and spreading kindness one cup at a time. Blue Collar Coffee Company partnered with Whittier Elementary School students to celebrate Random Acts of Kindness Day. Blue Collar Coffee opened its doors in Boise last May, and it's hoping this Random Acts of Kindness Day initiative becomes an annual tradition. That's the 411 on the 208. I'm Abby Davis.
And yes, it is President's Day, which started as a federal holiday in 1879 to celebrate the birthday of our first president. That would be George Washington, born on February 22nd. Then in 1971, Congress moved that holiday to the third Monday of February because, well, all federal holidays must be on a Monday after what they approved in 1968. And since then, we just made it a day to honor all presidents, not just one. 13 sitting presidents, by the way, have visited Idaho over the years, beginning with President Benjamin Harrison the year after granting the Gem State, well, statehood. He planted a tree at the State House. So did Presidents Teddy Roosevelt and William Howard Taft. But other than some now dead trees and most Idahoans enjoying a 3-day weekend in the middle of winter, we wanted to take a look at presidential impacts on Idaho. And we wanted to see if we could do that in 1 minute. So here is your 60-second history lesson. Idaho first peaked presidential interest in the early 19th century when President Thomas Jefferson sent Lewis and Clark westward to find the Pacific. The core discovery crossed into modern-day Idaho on September 20th, 1805. Nearly 60 years later, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Idaho Organic Act, creating the Idaho Territory on March 4th, 1863. Then in 1887, Congress tried to split Idaho in two, portioning the panhandle part to Washington, but President Grover Cleveland refused to sign it as a favor to Territorial Governor Edward Stevenson, who just happened to be the cousin of Vice President Adlai Stevenson. Idaho's salvaged 3 years later, on July 3rd, 1890, President Benjamin Harrison signed the act to officially make Idaho part of the Union. Let's jump ahead to the 1970s. In the aftermath of the Vietnam War and a presidential scandal, Idaho's Senator Frank Church decided he could lead the country into better days. Announcing his candidacy for president in March 1976, Church would actually win primaries in Nebraska, Idaho, Montana, and Oregon, only to concede to Jimmy Carter that June. And finally, 31 years after President Richard Nixon resigned, the main informant in the Watergate scandal that led to that resignation made himself known. Deep Throat was actually Mark Felt, a native of Twin Falls and a U of I grad. Nailed it. Did you get all that? I hope so. In recognition of his 3-hour tour of Boise, President Harrison also has a well-known boulevard named for him in the North End. But he's not the only one with a street named for them across Idaho. In fact, there are 5 Idaho counties named for U.S. presidents. That'd be Adams, Jefferson, Lincoln, Madison, and Washington. We mentioned those before, that there have been 13 presidents that have visited here. Well, since 1964, when President Lyndon Johnson stopped by the Idaho National Laboratory, Idaho has welcomed every president, except one, at least once while they were in office. President Donald Trump broke that streak during his first term, so I guess we'll see what he does during his second.
Sometimes I just go behind a truck or a Ranger or something, or a 4-wheeler. That was fun too, but the horses is better.
Literally tying together two things essential to Idaho: skiing and horses. Not Skijoring, but Skijoring. We'll explain, and we'll show it to you. You know, explaining stuff is what we like to do on the 208. So if you have any Idaho stuff you don't quite understand, let us know, or help us understand your take on whatever we're talking about today. Text us or leave us a voicemail. The number's the same, 208-321-5614. If your message is clean, concise, and clever, well, we might squeeze it in at the end of today's show. You know, things can get a bit slow during the doldrums of winter, but that's sometimes when the best ideas come out. Ideas like Skijoring, a winter sport where a person is pulled on skis by a horse, a dog, any other animal. Some people even do it behind snowmobiles or four-wheelers. The sport dates back several centuries to Scandinavia as a way for people to travel during the harsh and snowy winter months, obviously. They'd be towed back then behind a reindeer on long wooden skis. Early travelers found ski driving a practical mode of transportation. Then in the late 1920s, at the second Olympic Winter Games, competitors held a Skijoring demonstration, but the skier did it without a rider, as you can see there. Skier would just drive the horse from behind, racing head-to-head with other competitors. After World War II, that would be in the 1940s, it was brought back to the U.S., first to Colorado, then it was brought farther west into the 1950s, and has found a home in the Wood River Valley where they've held races for the past 30 years. Hunter Funk went this year to see what it's all about.
What a beautiful Sunday to be outdoors. It's not too hot, not too cold.
Skijoring.
Just kind of hometown, back your pickups up and have a good time.
It's a sport roping in all ages.
Weston is our skier.
And at just 9 years old.
Go, 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 go!
Give him some speed. Hang on.
Woo!
Ah, yeah. They were rolling.
Weston Wackerman from Wyoming took the fastest time in the Pee Wee division.
That was my fastest run yet.
13.2 seconds.
Leader in the Pee Wee.
He's been doing this
For 3 years. It was the funnest thing I've ever done when I first started.
and he heard about it after his sisters slid into the sport.
Then I was like, I gotta do this more.
The Pee Wee division has athletes go in a straight path as fast as they can. If you ask Weston what the most challenging part is,
The most challenging thing is holding onto the rope and getting through the gates. And yeah, that's hard because you gotta lean with the horse and try to like walk like you're just skiing like on flat ground. That's what I had to try to do.
and the grip is everything.
Tight grip because you gotta climb that rope, or unless you're, or your hand's gonna slide off and it's done. That wouldn't be fun.
The older you are and the longer you've been in the sport, the more challenging it gets.
It's a lot more competitive. You know, we have a skier, a horse, and a rider. They've got to go through this course. They've got to hit gates. There's rings.
At this Bellevue course, the rider maintains the speed, lines up the skier, and grabs one ring, while the skier goes around the gates, up the ramps, and grabs 6 total rings. And if you drop one, it's a 2-second penalty.
She's got penalties.
Scotty Ping started racing back in 2001, and he was hooked.
First race I saw, I had to do it. So I went out and bought a horse, and then I went out and bought a faster horse, and I went out and bought a faster horse, and next thing you know, I'm winning belt buckles, and I just loved it.
More than 20 years and several wins later, you will now find him in the stands.
Well, I'm really actually turned into a cheerleader. I just like to cheer people on and say, go, 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 go. Forgot my bell this time, but you know, it's just fun to be associated with all these people here.
Ping is also an advocate in bringing the sport to the Winter Olympics, and this year, it's getting the exposure it needs to get there. The Skijoring Association will be putting on a race in Sun Valley during the FIS World Cup downhill skiing event.
It's a once in a lifetime as a skijoring type of deal to be able to be put on during that event.
And if you ask Ping how that makes him feel,
Yippee! That's what it makes me feel like, you know, because it's really one big step into getting international recognition here.
it's a sport that is growing, and one Bellevue, Idaho embraces.
And I think it's a blend of two cultures. I mean, Cody Jinks says hippies and cowboys, and it's literally a bunch of hippies and cowboys that get together and they have zero problems all weekend and just hang out.
And kids like Weston look forward to taking his skills to the national stage someday.
I want to do it forever and ever. It's what I want to do.
And so if you've missed the event, the FIS World Cup in Sun Valley will be holding a race there. It's March 24th at noon. It's a 3-hour-long race with just about 40 teams, so it'll be pretty quick.
He wants to do it forever. That sounds like a lot of time.
Right?
Okay, so we
Isn't
did get this
inspiring?
message from Randy, and I know we talked about this at the top. That is
Yes.
Scandinavian, but he says it's pronounced Skijoring.
Okay, this is one of the discussions that we
Yes.
had, is they said when it was over in Europe, that's how they say it, but when it was brought to the U.S., it got brought back as Skijoring.
Right.
Skijoring. I mean, Skijoring is what everybody was saying at that race.
Right.
But, I mean, leave it up to you, I guess.
Yeah, I
But
know.
Skijoring is what all the
True.
athletes said.
Shoshone, Shoshone. It just kind of changes sometimes.
It's tough.
It-
Man.
so is that
English.
race. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, it has been a gray and damp President's Day holiday, maybe a day that makes all of you Seattle area transplants feel right at home, or maybe remind you why you left, right? It has been just a soggy day. We're sitting, though, in the upper 30s in Boise right now. It's been too warm to support snowfall in the valleys, though we have seen snow stacking up in the mountains, mostly above about 5,500 feet, though. McCall sitting at 32 degrees right now. Sun Valley, a few breaks in the clouds, some sunshine peeking through in Sun Valley, where temperatures are in the mid-30s. So I think the most persistent rainfall for today is over and done with, but we're still seeing showers streaming in from west to northwest to southeast. So Magic Valley, you're pretty dry right now, but I wouldn't rule out a few more scattered showers across the Twin Falls area this evening. We'll likely see the showers holding on in Boise through about 7 or 8 o'clock tonight, and then we will see cloudy skies persist through most of the evening hours. But if you're out after 8 o'clock or so, you might be able to leave the umbrella in the car as you head out. 6:18 is that sunset time tonight. Our Tuesday, we see a very short-lived ridge of high pressure building in. Not a lot of sunshine tomorrow. We will dry out briefly, and then our next winter storm system is off to the west. That will roll in late Tuesday into Wednesday morning, and that will likely bring snow all the way down to valley floors, though I don't think it sticks around long, as we'll see rain returning by Wednesday afternoon. Still a first alert weather day for the middle of the week. Low temperatures tomorrow morning, upper 20s to around 30 degrees. Cold enough to support snowfall in the valleys, but I think the wet weather is turned off before those cold temperatures arrive. We'll likely see some areas of patchy, dense fog early, so that could limit your visibility for the morning commute. High temperatures look identical almost to today. For tomorrow, we'll see low to mid 40s across the Treasure Valley. On Wednesday, as that system comes in, it will not bring colder air, so temperatures hold steady in the low 40s. It's the morning that we're watching, though. 26 degrees Wednesday morning means we likely will see maybe an inch or two of accumulating snow in the Boise area before the rain in the afternoon erases that snowfall. We dry out Thursday as high pressure takes over, and then we start seeing a warming trend setting in. By the weekend, we have partly cloudy skies into the mid-40s for Saturday, into the mid-50s by next Monday.
All right, let's get to your comments today on this Monday, President's Day. This one sent in from Steve in Boise. Brian, the Constitution can be amended by 2/3 of state legislatures calling for a convention. 3/4 of all the states then need to ratify the amendment or change. I thought it was 3/4 of the states. Is that how it works? I'm not exactly sure. You might be right on that one, Steve. I'll double check that in just a second. But yes, they already have a way to change the Constitution by ratifying it through the states, which is what they've done. The last time I think was 1992 when they did that, something about the pay for Congress. It's rather ironic our representatives want to change the national Constitution when it's obvious the Constitution means little to them. Or they would fully fund our schools in Idaho, as our state Constitution says they should, says Sean. Meanwhile, the Constitutional Convention petition has been around for states to pass for years, but only 19 of the dark red states have voted for it. Only 15 more to go, he says. Don't hold your breath waiting for it, says Steve. I remember Skijoring in the mining tailings outside of Atlanta as kids. Surprised we all didn't glow in the dark, says Sue. How many takes did it take to make that 1-minute history lesson, asks Martin. Surprisingly, that was the first one. I rehearsed it a couple times, but I only did it one time. We tried it a couple times after that, but I think we just went with that first one, and it worked. It worked. Except Jack says, Brian, you already talked too fast. How about telling us Idaho history more respectfully and in a reasonable, slower voice? You can find that on our YouTube channel anytime. We'll see you tomorrow.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.